My life is in your hands. My life is in your hands. You took control when I was young, when I was not able. My life is in your hands. My life is in your hands. You took control when I was young, when I was not able.
Welcome to Inspired Blessings with Dream Prince. Thank you so much for joining us today. And today, my guest is Marley Hornik, and basically, she's the executive director of New York Citizens for Audit. And so, thank you so much. I appreciate you joining us today. And I know that a good friend of mine, Tammy, okay, she basically is very much involved and I could see her passion about why we need to reveal the truth and about our elections and how we don't only find out that it's 2020, but we find out that it's even been previous, and it's not in even just our nation of the United States, but it's all across the world. That we have voter fraud, and that we have politicians in office that aren't supposed to be in office. And as we can say, even to this date, we have politicians that aren't supposed to be in office today, but through corruption and everything else. So so I believe that we should always reveal the truth, and because Jesus is the truth, way, and life, and he hates dishonest scales. He hates, these things that are happening that some seems out of control, but yet he knows all things, and whatever is done in darkness will come to light, and whatever's done in secret, will be exposed. So thank you so much for what you're doing, and why is it that you're doing what you're doing?
Thank you. I'm working on the New York Citizens Audit effort, I suppose, for over 2 years now as a volunteer, and have dedicated probably thousands of hours of my life to it, along with many, many incredible individuals, including Tammy. Over 2,000 people have contributed materially to the research efforts, the investigation that New York Citizens Audit has done into the New York State voting system, because I love New York State, and because I love this creation, and because I love America. And I do believe that elections are the key that turns every lock. No matter what you're most concerned about, maybe in your own personal life, whether or not our system of representative governance is actually functioning according to the vision of our founders has to do with whether or not our elections are honest and accurate. And so it couldn't be a more critical issue to bear down on as the American people, and demand and insist that our elections follow the law, which currently they do not, to a very concerning degree, actually. And it's, people talk about shenanigans. This is not shenanigans, what we've uncovered. This is really just
Crime.
absolute election misconduct for decades.
Hmm. Right. And the thing is that a lot of people are asleep. They just believe what the mainstream media is telling them, you know. And
Right.
I hate to say that the social media sites, basically they try to stop people from sharing the truth. I was, you know, some of my shows I would talk about truth, whether it's the vaccines not being good for you or whether or not that there was voter fraud. And when I did that, what do you think YouTube did? They deleted those shows. So apparently, they're trying to muffle us from sharing the truth. So I'm glad that God has given me this opportunity to have you on.
Right. Well, I think a lot of people don't really understand our voting system. I certainly didn't 2 years ago when I picked up this clipboard. Our voting system really, it's very complicated, but there is a moment of great clarity that all Americans should be aware of, which is when the election official by state signs and attests in the moment of certification that everything regarding the election that they're certifying is accurate, it's provably accurate, and it complied with all federal and state laws governing the administration of that election. And we can actually prove that certification was an act of perjury in New York in 2020 and in 2022, just based on our forensic investigation into the voter roll databases. The voter roll databases tell the story that our elections have not been accurate and they've not been honest. And you don't have to actually become an elections expert to understand how that has taken place. It's just someone told a really giant lie,
Hmm.
actually. And I think a lot of people, even if they don't really fully penetrate into the voting system, many people understand now that there's something gone wrong. The laws, in America, Thomas Paine, an amazing patriot, wrote it very carefully and clearly in his treatise, the common sense, right? He said, in America, the law is king. The founders, and at the time of the founding, they well understood that no one human should ever have the authority over a nation individually. Like, it's just too much power. And so they put the law on that throne in America. What is the law? The law is the agreements by which we all live. It's a moral code, basically, that we all must adhere to have harmony in our communities, to have peace in our nation. And so, how do we decide what those laws will be? Well, we, the people, we can't argue about every single law because there's just too many of us. It would be chaotic. So, through honest and provable, accurate elections, we appoint our representatives, the people who we most trust and align with philosophically and spiritually, to make those choices for us, to write law and enforce law for the entire American body, the American citizenry, right? So
Hmm.
I think a lot of people across New York State right now know that something's gone wrong with the laws. The laws don't reflect our values, they don't reflect our priorities. They're not honest and they're not compassionate. And so it's like, what to do about that is where I think people get very confused. But really demanding that we have accurate elections is going to repair all this confusion.
Well, Marley, I have the PDF that you sent me, so if you want to kind of go over that and what it's saying, can,
Sure.
can you see it?
So some of our findings really indicate massive violations of the law. So in New York State, there is a law that says that every voter can have one state board of elections ID number for their voting life. So you can never, even if you move around the state or you move out of state and come back, or even out of the country and come back, you always have the same ID number. But we found that there were 1.1 million people who have been assigned 2.4 million ID numbers, which creates roughly 1.25 million opportunities to
Mm.
cast fraudulent votes. And they have cast fraudulent votes. Um, we found that almost 1 million registered voters somehow managed to register to vote on a federal holiday, January 1st, between 1900 and 2021. Again, it's possible that some of these registrations are valid. However, they can't all be valid. And when the election officials tell us, don't worry about that, it's a default date, they are violating their honor code, which is to prove to the people what really happened. They have to actually go line by line and show us every single one of these registrations and why it's not fraudulent. There are 625,000 more registrations than voting age citizens in 6 counties. And most concerning, perhaps, is the simple fact that the 2020 general election in New York was certified, which means it was guaranteed accurate and compliant with the law when it had 338,000 more votes cast than voters who voted.
I mean, that's a
So,
common sense. That's common sense to say
yeah,
something is definitely wrong. You know what
exactly.
I'm
We're
saying?
not ready to
Yeah.
certify. It doesn't mean that there was definitely misconduct. It doesn't mean that there was definitely criminal behavior, it means you can't certify. And
Right.
if you say it's accurate and compliant, you're lying. And when you're an election official, you have one of the most important jobs in America in terms of protecting our system of government by consent, of liberty of conscience, liberty in speech, liberty in association. All of the fundamental civil rights that we identify with as Americans are protected by accurate elections. And so when a person in that position lies, when they perjure themselves in the moment of certification, they are defrauding the citizenry of New York. And regarding a federal election, they're actually defrauding the citizens of the United States of America. It's a big deal.
Right. Right.
If you had $338,000 in your bank account and the next day you went in and it was gone, basically, would you be okay with that? That's the way to pose that
Or
question
the
to
thief.
yourself. Is that a clerical error?
Right. Yeah. It's being a thief. And that's what I really feel has happened with the 2020 election is they stole the votes from President Trump. And and in some situations, it shows how it went from him. It was given to President Trump the vote, and then wasn't it transferred to Biden? So
Right. Well, there have been a tremendous number of allegations made, and some of them have been evidenced end to end. But it is the moment of certification that is provably a crime. It is provably an act of perjury in New York because of the certification of an election at a bare minimum, that with 338,000 more votes than voters. But when you have these 1.25 million illegal registrations in the voter roll database casting votes, again, they're not allowed to ignore the law. Whatever basis they have to justify those illegal registrations is unacceptable.
all right. Yeah, no, it's definitely. Now, tell me this: New York Citizens Audit. When did this actually start? Was it because of the 2020 election, or has it been throughout?
No, we began in July of 2021 was when our team formed. So we had a lot of people home told that we were not essential, told that we had to participate in a medical experiment if we wanted to become essential again. And instead, we chose to use the Freedom of Information law to get a copy of the New York State voter roll database and start digging.
Yeah, thank goodness they gave us time, to do that because we found out a lot of truth within that. I mean, honestly, I kind of grew up thinking that okay, our government was for us. The FDA was trying to protect us, protect our health. The NIH, the CDC, and I find out that everything that I thought was is totally the opposite. I don't trust vaccines. Okay, children's vaccines, I don't trust. All right. I mean, just so much corruption, so much bribery, so much blackmailing that is going on. So yeah, so with this,
Right.
I mean, this is where I say, where does common sense come in? You know what I mean? And the fact that common sense, do you really believe that Biden won when he couldn't even get enough people to sit around him for his, just when he would do his speaking events, his rallies? Where
Right, I would agree
President
that
Trump had hundreds and
common
hundreds
sense
of rallies.
indicates that there was a problem.
Mhm.
However, the law proves that there was a problem, and it's very simple to
It's
understand.
about
The
the
law
facts.
says elections must be accurate and they must be valid, and these elections were not valid. They did not meet the legal standard of validity. And I'll explain it further, okay? So we found, well, let me walk that back. According to federal law, a federal election does have an allowable amount of error. And I'll specify exactly what that is. It's in the federal government documents. An election can have either 1 in 10 million ballot positions in error, or it can have 1 in 125,000 ballots in error. So in the 2020 election, for example, they are allowed something like 68 ballots in error. So there is, it's acknowledged that there are true mistakes that take place. Not very many, but there are a couple, and they could be tolerated. They're very, very unlikely to affect the election or the outcome of a federal election. New York Citizens Audit found over 740,000 votes cast by registration records in the state database that are either illegal or invalid under the law. So that's a lot more than 68 or 69 ballots in error. Again, violating that federal error rate standard means the election is no longer valid. It's got nothing to do with whether or not the margin of victory was overcome. It has to do with whether or not the election can be trusted at all.
All right. Well, so you're giving us the findings, the conclusion of what the data is saying. What are the steps now that are being taken to be able to change and to be able to make the facts be known and to be able to now correct the mistakes, correct the crime?
Yes, so New York Citizens Audit is blessed. We have been absolutely blessed by thousands of incredible volunteers, and we encourage everyone who wants to get involved on this issue to join us. Actually, it's got to be one of the most fun teams in America, and you meet the most extraordinary critical thinking patriots you will ever find. And we have been taking these facts and evidence in the form of a resolution that we are requesting all town boards across New York State sign on to in support of a resolution for an end-to-end audit of the 2022 general election. We've proven that they certified 2020 in error or as an act of fraud. We know that 2022 was the same, and we're still living with the results of 2022. So we need to open up those books and find out exactly where the errors impacted election outcomes. One of the problems with the way that the data is being maintained by the Board of Elections is that I can't tell you which elections were improperly called. I don't know which ones the wrong candidate ended up in office. The problem is neither does the State Board of Elections. No one knows the true outcome of our will as the voting citizen, right? It's not been recorded accurately. So that's why our volunteers are going town by town across New York State with these facts. They're doing an extraordinary job. We have training sessions once a week online for all people who are interested in learning how to report these facts correctly, how to join a team, how to get involved, how to bring more people in, and demand that our local officials support us in calling for an audit. And I'm happy to say that dozens and dozens of towns across New York State have already signed this resolution. Over 200 New York State townships have already received this request
Okay.
in person.
All right. So that request, hopefully, it's not in vain.
No, it's not in vain. It's extraordinary.
I mean, no. What I'm saying is the fact that you hope it's not in vain. That there will be a conclusion of some kind of actions being taken to remove, the politicians that weren't supposed to be there. You know what I mean? I mean, there's got to be some kind of consequence to the action.
Well, the audit is what we need because look, like I said, actually regarding 2022, we may never know who won any of those races. That's real. And an audit may or may not help us figure out who won any of those races. However, with the 2024 general election coming up, about 16 months away now, people, we can't America cannot withstand another massive election unrest and battle. We need to have an accurate and trustworthy result for the 2024 election. So it is critical that we get this audit. And the other thing that New York Citizens Audit is doing is getting ready to file lawsuits about this on the off chance that the audit is not procured through the efforts of all our volunteers and all of the many town boards supporting them across the state. So if you go to auditny.com, You can click volunteer or you can click donate. Either way, you're going to be actively supporting one of the most credible investigations into election fraud in America and a real outcome with teeth to fix things before 2024.
Okay, so I see the fact that, yes, how this could change for the 2024, but I guess what I'm looking for is people to be held accountable from the 2020 and the 2022. And I just feel like all we're seeing is a lot of being able to get the facts, we're seeing the crime, but we're seeing that they're getting away with the crime. So I guess, are you saying that the 2020 and the 2022, even though you're able to prove that there was fraud, can anything be reversed and changed with what you're doing, or is it only that we're trying to protect the 2024?
Holding people accountable can be accomplished, and that is the point of our litigation. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Until people are held accountable, there may not be a remedy for 2024, no matter how much of an audit is accomplished, which is still critical, don't get me wrong. But if no one is held accountable, then there's no consequence for lying, cheating, and stealing. And that's not how we operate in this creation. There
Right.
are consequences, and it's up to us, the people, to enforce them, because right now our government agencies are rogue. Like I said, the law has gone rogue. That's a result of broken elections, and it's up to us, the people, to hold the system accountable, and that's through advocacy, education, and litigation. All of those are critical, and the final point I would say that's critical is absolute trust and faith that there is going to be a solution. We are the human agents of divine intention, and if we are not clear about being able to win, then there's a good chance that we won't. But we
Right.
are. I mean, at New York Citizens Audit, we have no doubt.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. What you're doing is great, and I'm glad for especially the fact that New York is just such a democratic, such a you just wonder like, okay, so if we present this to a judge, are they corrupt? If we present this to the attorney general, are they corrupt? You know what I'm saying? So,
Well, we have presented it to the Attorney General,
and what
and
happened?
we've gotten no response. It's
Okay,
been
so
completely ignored. We've presented it to the Attorney General, the Inspector General, the State Board of Elections, the heads of the Republican and Democrat parties. We've brought it to the state police. The state police told us that this was basically an incredible investigation, and they had to pass the investigation to the FBI, to the Foreign Intelligence Task Force.
which I don't
I mean,
trust.
our
Okay.
results are credible. They have been
Well,
peer reviewed and they are irrefutable.
all right. So what
But
I'm trying to say is you are naming all these titles, okay, and apparently they're corrupt. All right. So how can we as citizens be able to do it on our own? Now, for instance, I don't know if you're familiar with listening to Jack and Mary Flynn. Okay, they are a husband and wife team that they have been showing people how to fill out affidavits to be able to hold politicians accountable, whether or not whether they follow the Constitution, and they've been able to have politicians removed from their posts because of the fact that they were able to prove it doing an affidavit. So I'm finding this to be effective as well. So I think this affidavit, this Jack and Mary Flynn, you should really listen to and go alongside what you're doing and to learn more about it, because then we the people literally can be able to then get them removed on our own, not having to worry about an attorney general or the FBI or you know what I'm saying, all these corrupt people.
yeah, I understand. I'm not worried about the Attorney General or the FBI. I know we're going to win, and I know how we win. I can't exactly lay the whole thing out end to end right here in 5 minutes, but there's
Mhm.
absolutely no gap in our strategy. I mean,
Mhm.
I really encourage it. Really, the only gap that I could identify, the only way that we can possibly lose if people decide that it's just not going to work and people don't get involved. We have to get all people across New York State educated to the facts of how elections operate, where the crime took place, and coming all together as one body and saying, we absolutely demand a fair
Oh,
and honest election that
yeah.
complies with the law.
Yeah, no, definitely. Because then what happens is people get discouraged and like, why should I vote when it's going to be anyway? My vote's not going to count. But the thing is that people still should vote anyway because
You
maybe
have to
something
vote. That's
progressive.
American. You have
Yeah,
to vote. If you quit on America and you quit on your vote, then who is going to come and save you? Who is going to come and fix things for your grandchildren and your great
well, that's
grandchildren?
it.
It's up to us. We are the ones who have the
Mhm.
opportunities still to stop this before America is destroyed. And that is something we absolutely can't turn away from.
Yeah, no, definitely. No, I definitely agree with it. And that's why I, wanted to have you on the show because I wanted more people to understand that there is an organization like yours that's really trying to stand up for the corruption, that's trying to get fair, honest scale votes. Like I said, God hates dishonest scales. And he knows, I tell you, I'd be afraid of the people that if they're not, that they're the ones cheating and things like that and doing the things that they are, you know what? Maybe in the physical, you're not being revealed. But spiritually, God knows all things and you're going to be held accountable, whether in this life or the life, that that your eternity. Because, yeah, God, he's the God of order. Okay. And isn't, order is making sure everything follows the guideline of how you're supposed to do elections. Chaos is disorder. You know what I'm saying? Of these illegal voting systems that they're doing, and it's just causing chaos and it's causing division among people as well. People
Well,
are
it's also causing confusion. And when we have a confused populace, it's very easy to take advantage. And that's why I speak this so clearly. It's so simple.
Mhm.
Our voting system is critical. It is the critical piece to securing our enduring liberty. It is the fundamental principle of the United States of America. The philosophical basis of America is government by consent. If our elections are not accurate and honest, we are not being governed by consent.
Right.
And it is absolutely up to us to hold the people accountable. Now, instead of going out and ranting and just saying it doesn't look right, we're saying, here's the facts. We looked at the law and we looked at the voting system, and we know you're committing perjury. We know our elections are a fraud, and we've proved it. We're bringing it across the state to the people. We want the people to know, and we're bringing it to court because a judge has to rule on this. And the more people who understand what has taken place clearly, the harder it will be for a judge to say, it's fine. The election officials in America no longer have to follow the law.
Right. Yeah. No. Hopefully, like I said, is that we don't have a corrupt judge. That's what's always the concern. Um, but maybe somehow, I don't know, through the affidavit that he's supposed to follow the Constitution.
We
Um,
have to have faith. You have to know without a doubt that at any moment, our creator who can create miracles out of
yep.
nothing, can create, the parting of the seas where all seems absolutely hopeless, that person's heart can be opened, or
Yeah.
simply that their integrity cannot cross a line of actually saying out loud in a court in the United States of America, election officials are allowed to ignore the law. It's
Right. Right.
just completely un-American.
Yeah.
And so we have to hold that faith. We have to know that our efforts are seen and they
Mhm.
are understood by our creator,
Right.
and that our task is to continue with
Mhm.
absolute faith and certainty in everything that we have already brought to light, that are facts,
Yeah.
facts
Thank.
and evidence.
Yep. Thank
And
you,
it is
Molly.
up,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just saying we hate to say we're out of time, but thank you so much for what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing, and maybe I'll even think about getting involved in between my 5 grandkids. But anyway,
Wonderful.
this
I
is
hope you
good.
do. It's a
Yeah.
tremendous amount of fun,
Well,
actually.
that's
Really,
why
the
I would start with
presentations
this.
people are doing are so inspiring and uplifting, and I tell you, the team is just extraordinary, the best
Yeah.
people I've ever known.
Right. Well, that's why I figured let me start with at least getting the truth out. So I appreciate your time. Thank you so much, and keep doing what you're doing. And
Thank you.
And if you're interested in a guest speaker, I'd love to be able to share my testimony. But keep inspired blessings within arm's reach to help you give them comfort when others are at a loss for words. Thank you, and God bless. To accept and receive Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, please say this prayer. I know that I am a sinner who needs forgiveness. Jesus, please forgive me for all my sins and purify me. I know that you died and rose again to pay for my sins. I need you to be my Lord and Savior for the rest of my life. Thank you in the name of Jesus. Amen. For more information about Jean Marie Prince and Inspired Blessings, please go to jeanmarieprince.com. That's JEAN.
You took control when I was young, when I was not able. You took control when I was young, when I was not able. You took control when I was young, when I was not able. You took control when